Hello, this is Natural Freedom League. I am John Wydogan with naturalfreedomleague.com. Here again with my producer and co-host, Chill Will Keller.
How's it going, everybody? Excited?
What's up, Will?
What's up, John?
Doing good. Excited today. Have our special guest, really the inspiration behind Natural Freedom League. Mark Passio is an anarchist, independent researcher, public speaker, radio talk show host, conference organizer, and freedom activist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Mark has undertaken the task of assembling vast amounts of research in the areas of metaphysics, occultism, spirituality, symbology, and consciousness studies. In 2007, Mark began presenting this information in the form of a presentation series entitled What on Earth is Happening, with the intention of bringing the implications of this body of knowledge to greater public awareness. Mark launched his own website in 2008. You can find him at whatonearthishappening.com. In 2010, Mark began hosting his own internet radio show, also called What on Earth is Happening, which has over 200 episodes to date. And you need to start at episode 1 and work your way through. It's a vast amount of information, and it's really laid out in a linear fashion, which is very effective. And I recommend anybody who wants to understand this knowledge, start there. Mark has taught intensive life seminars. A lot of them you can find, or all of them you can find on YouTube, also through his website, including Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction, and how to apply it in your life, New Age BS and the Suppression of the Sacred Masculine, Streetwise Spirituality, Demystifying the Occult, and many, many more. Mark is also the founding member and lead vocalist of the Philadelphia-based anarchist hardcore punk band, The Founders. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. We're jumping 2021 off pretty good.
Yeah. So your work is definitely the inspiration for what I started doing with Natural Freedom League, listening to your podcast, and obviously noticing the desperation of the situation we're in with 2020 and how that played out. And your podcast, for people who didn't know your work already, if they started watching you, it might have been a little too heavy for them.
Sure.
You were definitely letting your anger be known and be shown, and it's righteous anger. You have a right to be upset about the way the world is going, and I agree with you. So you inspired me this year to go basically set up on a corner in my hometown. I made some signs that had basic ideas about natural law, and stood out there with my sign, and I did some live videos, and I called it Moral Law Mondays. I went out there every Monday for 16 weeks, and that led to me meeting like-minded people like Will, and that led to us collaborating on this podcast. And we've really tried to, we've probably name dropped you every episode, but we definitely are trying to tie in all the different people that we're talking to, maybe people who are taking political approaches, or people who are, maybe just activists in the community, and tying it back in to natural law. So it's definitely been inspired by you, and we appreciate all the work that you do.
Well, I thank you so much for that. I mean, it's good to hear that people are basically assembling in small groupings, and basically trying to put the word out to other people. To me, that's what the great work is all about. Forming some type of a unit to receive mutual help and aid in these types of incredibly trying times, and to just put the work of objective morality and natural law out there for others to comprehend, to deeply understand, and then to go out and teach others. That's how this message is going to spread. To me, that's what the core of the great of doing the great work is all about. So thank you, gentlemen, for doing that and forming Natural Freedom League and putting the word out there. That to me, that is the best repayment for putting out the work that I've put out that I could ever receive. That's what I want, is help in spreading the message. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, we do too. And one thing that we've found when we go out, we had this event, was actually where me and Will met. It was in San Francisco. So as you know, living in Philadelphia, a very liberal city,
Right.
we would have people ride by, and we had signs that said, what is a right? And the other side of the sign says, where do your rights come from? And we'd have people, saying, oh, Trumpers, or cussing at us on the way by. And it's like, how does a sign that says, where do your rights come from,
Right.
make you think that I'm Republican, or, make you have any idea? And that
Imagine
clearly,
how politically brainwashed someone has to be to think that human rights have anything to do with government. That's a political statement. You're
Yeah.
talking about something that is a moral concept, a moral statement. Nothing whatsoever to do with the slavery of politics. And yet that's the first place their minds go to. I mean, it really shows you where we're at as a people, especially in large cities in the United States. It's really an awful situation with how terribly damaged people's whole psyches have become due to the indoctrination that they receive in public schooling, especially, like I said, in big cities. It's a bad situation.
Yeah, they want to, when they don't understand something, they want to throw us into a box to try to make sense of it. So
Right.
it's been a really good experience, face to face with people and having that conversation, communicating. It's kind of a different level than just doing videos or communicating online. So it's been a great experience.
So how did that whole experience end with your little social experiment in San Francisco? What happened?
So it kind of evolved into where we realized we had to address what we call the agenda against natural law, right? So we had to address, because people would want to know, what do you support this and do you support that? And it's like, you have to get into actually explaining to people how government is immoral and the belief in authority is immoral. So it's definitely evolving, but it evolved to where we started talking about the agenda more, and we started doing it on Derek Bros was doing the Expose Bill Gates Day.
Hmm.
So we would do it like every second Saturday in San Francisco, and we would start. It kind of adjusted the type of signs we would make. So we would start to make signs so that people knew that we weren't one side or the other politically, because you would have people thinking that you were either side of the political
Sure.
spectrum,
Because they
depending
can't
on.
conceive that there is anything else. It's inconceivable to their entire worldview that there is
Exactly.
anything other than their paradigm, or the quote enemy paradigm, the opposite of the political spectrum that they fall onto. Yeah.
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 We took it out to Sacramento, and at these rallies they were holding multiple weekends back to back. This is probably the first 2 weeks that we actually didn't go out there. But yeah, it's interesting.
Hmm.
We One thing we've discovered, which is, basically is true, is that it seems like the conservative minded people are more closely ideologically able to understand natural law and the concepts that we were talking about. But even in that, even some left wing people would see some of our signs, at least in Sacramento, and like one of the signs says, "Government is the root of our problems," and most people see that sign and they agree with it, But then they're out there begging for some type of government intervention. So
Of
we're
course.
trying to show them the flaw in their thinking.
Right.
So Will and I have listened to all of your podcasts and presentations at least once, and we're both very interested in one particular concept that you've brought up, and I know you probably wanted to delve into it deeper
Sure.
in your own work, but that's the concept of having the psychopath.
Okay. Sure. We could definitely explore that. Yeah, this is something that I do want to put out in a formal presentation at some point in the future. But I think, a podcast format like this is perfect, opportunity to delve into this topic a little bit. So, when people hear the concept of having the psychopath, I'm sure that's going to bring up immediately a lot of negative, concepts in their mind. A lot of people think that negative emotions and negative states of consciousness, quote unquote, negative states of emotions and consciousness, have no purpose and are there to be purged. There's something that we should be working on getting rid of from ourselves. And this is something that, in my work, I really strive to explain to people that that is incorrect thinking. Um, Sadness is there for a reason. It should be experienced. Anger is there for a reason. It should be experienced. Even states like hatred are there for a reason. We should hate ignorance. We should hate slavery. We should hate people who actually are taking other people's rights. Okay? There's nothing wrong with hating the states of having your right taken away. There's nothing wrong with hating the state of slavery. If you went up to a slave on a plantation and said, "Do you hate being kept as a slave and worked like an animal?" No one slave should say that they love that condition, not a one, right? And it is a perfectly normal, healthy, natural response to say, I hate this condition. No one should be kept like this. So even something like hatred, when applied to the correct things, not just frivolously brought out and expressed for wrong purposes or bad reasons, the state of consciousness, such as having hatred for something that you should hate, is part of a psychological makeup that is actually healthy and complete. It is not something we should shun or shy away from. Now, that being said, obviously we want to work toward positive states of consciousness, positive states of being. Okay. What do we really want? We want peace. We want prosperity. We want order. We want freedom. We want love. All of these things are what we want to aspire to. But we also have to be boots on the ground, pragmatic about what we're doing to move toward achieving those goals, achieving those states of being in the world. While we're doing that, we have to realize, first of all, and definitively true, not everyone wants those things. Not everyone wants those goals. There are people who are actively working against those good things, okay, that they don't want those to manifest. What they want to manifest is chaos, disorder, control, slavery, fear, all of it, okay? So at some point in time, what a person who is either waking up or has woken up is going to realize is that we are dealing with an entire group of human beings, if you want to even call them that, okay? Because some would say that there are something other than human beings, but we're dealing with people who are so damaged, okay, that they are not going to reverse their courses of action. Let's just face it, they're going to persist with that until they die or until they are removed from life in some form or fashion. They're going out in that state of consciousness, and they're going to have to change in a different lifetime or in a different expression of consciousness. Their evolutionary journey will not make any forward progress in the flesh as a human being in this incarnation. Let's put it that way. Okay. When you realize that we are up against an enemy with zero conscience, they don't care. Not only don't they have the knowledge about what's right and wrong, most of them, I would argue some of the higher order dark Luciferians do have that knowledge and actively work against it anyway, which arguably makes them even worse. But the minions, the order followers, the real, secondary and primary psychopaths of the world, not only don't they have the knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong behavior under natural law, they don't care at all. They don't care to know. They'll tell you to your face they don't want to know. They're never going to know. They're never going to bother to try to learn, let alone actually learn it, let alone do the actual work of what it takes to actually learn it. So right off the bat, I understand this is extremely heavy material for anybody who might be new to my work. You wouldn't want to start here. Let's just put it that way. Let me make that caveat because we're going to talk about it's going to get heavier and heavier. Okay, this is just the very beginning of, you have to make this realization that there are people like that in the world, that there's a lot of them. It's not a small, small, tiny amount. It's a small, small, tiny amount that are directing these agendas. Okay, it's not a trivial amount of those who are going along with them and enacting them. It's actually probably, I would say, over a quarter of human beings, and there's many more who want it. So, it's a I would say it's a significant percentage of human beings, not a trivial one. Okay. And those who are becoming more psychopathic are growing, not diminishing. Okay. You could just see it if you go into any major city. You could see what the consciousness is like. It's garbage. Okay. It's terrible. And if you're not exactly with their political agenda, you're somehow the enemy. This is how brainwashed they are, because they don't know the difference between right and wrong. They don't know that government is slavery. They don't know any of these things. They are still television watchers. They are still mainstream media absorbers in whatever form, whether they do it through the television or through the internet, doesn't make a difference. They believe the mainstream media. This is where a lot of these people's heads are at. Their heads are constantly being filled with poisonous garbage all day, every day. Okay, so one, that realization has to be made to even begin to understand the concept that I'm talking about of maintaining the qualities of a psychopath in a compartment of your personality. Okay, so first of all, to even understand this, next you would have to understand, well, what is a psychopath? We use the word, but what does it actually mean? Psychopaths are people who, part of their mind, part of their psyche, part of their brain doesn't work correctly. Okay, it is damaged and or broken in some fashion. And this is the limbic brain, the limbic system of the brain, what has been called the mammalian brain in the triune brain system of the reptilian, the mammalian, and the human brain complexes in neuroscience. Okay, the midbrain or the mammalian brain, also known as the mammalian complex in the brain, the limbic system of the brain. These are all the glandular parts of the brain that are responsible for creating neuropeptides and other neurochemicals that allow us to truly experience emotion in the body. These chemicals go out into the blood and into the bloodstream, and they actually make us feel things in the physiology, physically, so that when we have an emotion, we're having a physiological response in the body connected to the emotion. Okay, so when people feel like, say, that hurt my heart, it literally is a physiological response that goes to that part of the body. When for example, a close loved one dies, people say, I feel like I got punched in the gut. It literally, you feel like that, or I was punched in the chest. So heavy emotions bring on, through the limbic brain, a physiological response so that you could deeply feel something in the body. Okay, this is part of the whole body computer that a human being is. Okay, as a spiritual being, it's very important to have those types of physiological responses, because they could help us direct our behavior. When we're doing something wrong, we feel something deeply in the body, and that'll help us to, address and correct behavior we shouldn't be taking. When we do something that is right, we feel good in the body, and that helps us to want to do more of it because it feels good. This is normal, healthy reactions, emotional reactions, physiological emotional reactions in the body, that when the limbic brain works properly, that's what it's conducting / regulating. When the limbic brain is broken in some fashion from brain imbalance or brain damage, literal physical brain damage in many cases, then that part of the brain isn't doing that function properly, or not at all. And then we have what you call a psychopath, a person who really cannot experience emotions because that part of the brain is either damaged or shut down altogether. This could happen because of birth trauma. This could happen because of a physical accident. This could happen because the person's constantly living in a state of, fight or flight, and the brain becomes damaged over time, literally from brain imbalance. Okay, many reasons a psychopath forms. Okay, and then there are those who would say they're like that from birth, without birth trauma or any of those other physiological mechanisms or traumas, because there's potentially a psychopath part of the genetics that is activated in a small portion of human beings. And then we can get into, I got into in my radio show in the past, what potentially caused that type of, genetic trauma in our human genome. But that's for another discussion. Whatever creates them, psychopaths do exist. They're in our midst. They're interspecies predators with absolutely no conscience, no remorse. They never feel bad for what they do. They're very, cunning interspecies predators that have a lot of intellect without any emotion. Intellect divorced from emotion, a big characteristic of them. And they never take responsibility for what they do. They always want to pass it on to somebody else or blame someone else. Essentially, they have absolutely zero remorse for any wrongdoings that they conduct to other people. And they'll keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it until they're literally physically stopped from performing the behavior. They will not stop unless they're essentially physically stopped. Okay. Or you have to cease to interact with them in any way and not engage in any activity with them, which can be very hard to do if they're conducting, a lot of the measures of running a society, for example. Okay. Which unfortunately we have let become the state of the world. Okay. Human beings have allowed this through our inaction and through our not being hard enough on people, okay, and not wanting to do what is necessary to make the world a better place. We have let psychopaths gain the reins of power in the world, and basically they're running the show. They're running the place, okay? If people haven't made that determination and understanding that is definitively true, it's not an opinion, it's not a maybe, it might be, it's absolutely correct, true, that is the state of our world, okay? Now, you have to make all of those realizations and use the trivium to get to the point where you understand, yes, that is correct. That is true. It's not a matter of opinion. It's not anybody's opinion. It's the actual point of fact reality in which we live. Okay. The next thing is, how do you prepare yourself to deal with a world that is that way? Okay. And one of the things, now, there are many ways. First of all, knowledge is number one. Okay. Knowledge is number one. Getting your spirit and head right is number 1 and 2. Okay. Without that knowledge, there's no framework for dealing with it. Okay. But of utmost importance that can never be left at the doorstep is you have to maintain physical preparation for what you might have to do in a world such as that. Because to think that it may never come to any physical altercation, you are a naive child if that is what you think. And this is it's part of like just growing up, putting the big boy pants on, putting the big girl pants on, realizing this is a very real contingency. This may be something that you're going to have to deal with. As a matter of fact, it's something we all should be equipped to deal with, but almost hardly any human beings are. And first of all, this is because we're buying it in New Age nonsense, religious nonsense, okay, that is all about false forgiveness. See, this connects in with my New Age BS presentations, okay, because I talk about in there and in Streetwise Spirituality what real forgiveness is, right? It's not about like saying, I forgive these people for what they have done. They haven't asked for forgiveness. Real forgiveness is a two-way street in which one person is saying, I know I'm wrong. Will you forgive me and not take any repercussive action? Then if you forgive them, you say, okay, we'll start fresh. We'll let it start here as long as you don't do that thing again. That's true forgiveness. We use this term forgiveness to mean that I'm going to say, it's okay, and I'm not going to get angry about anything that you've done when you haven't expressed any remorse at all, when the psychopath hasn't expressed remorse. That's not forgiveness. That's a process called I'm letting go of those feelings because I don't want those feelings damaging me. Okay. But that's not real forgiveness. Forgiveness and letting go are two separate things, and people have to make that awareness. Okay. So what I'm talking about is what you have to first do is get into the mindset where you recognize what these people are. You recognize what they're doing. You realize how wrong it is, and you are going to get angry about it. You're not going to let that completely consume you, because you're still going to move forward and try to educate people, right? So it doesn't consume you 24 hours a day, right? But you're angry enough to make the preparations that you need to make to deal with them, not only in the mind and in showing other people that they're wrong, their way of being is wrong, their way of life that they're suggesting is wrong, is morally wrong, okay, and shouldn't be the way that we are living. But you may have to deal with them in the physical domain, and I mean through combat. So let's not mince words, through actually taking their lives. Okay, this is a contingency that may occur, and we're barreling toward it. We're not waltzing toward it. We're barreling down the side of over the cliff toward that contingency and eventuality because of how ignorant our population is. We are barreling toward war, and if people don't realize that, they're very, very, very dumb. Is all I could say, to just put it as blunt as it could be put. Okay, so again, the New Age movement has made people take this attitude of, we'll forgive them. They don't want your forgiveness. They look at you as a contemptuous being by even suggesting it. That's what a psychopath does. Psychopath doesn't feel love. They don't care about what you care about or feel. A psychopath is going to keep coming like a wild animal, a vicious wild animal. They're never going to stop, ever. That's the realization that people have to make about what psychopathy is. The psychopath doesn't care about your forgiveness of them. They view that with utter contempt. And that makes them come harder at you and for your rights. You know, that's all it does. It emboldens them. Psychopaths don't understand anything but being physically stopped. If everybody around them said, screw you, we know that that's wrong, we're not cooperating with you, that would be one way of mitigating the psychopath. But do we have a moral population? Do we have a population moral enough to do that? Unlikely. Very unlikely. Okay, I want a moral population that's big enough to do that, where people in a widespread way fully understand the difference between objective right and wrong under natural law, fully understand objective morality. But we have to ask ourselves, do we have that? And I would say we're not anywhere near that. This is why the American Revolution needed to be waged against the psychopaths of that day. And then all you got to do is ask yourself the question, was the American Revolution an act of hate or love? That's it. You know, this tells you sometimes you have to do vicious things to bad people. And the problem is good people who say that they're good people are loath to do those things. A movie that I highly recommend, a couple of movies I highly recommend people watch about this dynamic. I'd recommend watching the movie Equilibrium that puts this in allegorical form. I'd recommend watching the movie The Art of Self-Defense, which puts this in an allegorical form. I would recommend watching the movie Pan's Labyrinth, which is a very interesting esoteric one. But just Equilibrium and The Art of Self-Defense are two phenomenal movies about this dynamic, about psychopathy and how you defend against it. And they're brilliantly done. But going back to, what I'm talking about what led to the condition of us not being prepared or equipped to deal with the psychopath is the New Age movement has taught us all of these false notions, of what it means to be truly good or what it means to be awake. Religion has put these false notions into people's heads, cultural religions and the New Age movement religions. Then you combine that with the mainstream media telling you that these people are the good guys and that taking any physical action against them would be, the horror of horrors, God forbid. Then, you combine that all and you have a population that's just sitting there waiting to be eaten, and that's where we're at. So my concept called having the psychopath is a way of containing the psychopath. It's like sort of like a double entendre. It means you get them instead of them getting you, but you get them by having an aspect of psychopathy, not even an aspect, of actually having the qualities of the psychopath in a compartmentalized toolbox in your personality. Okay, so this means that with that toolbox, you're going to be able to have and contain them. You're going to be able to isolate and contain them, or possibly get rid of them. So here's what this means. It means that when it comes time to engage in any physical altercation with an enemy of no conscience, I'm not talking about someone that got drunk in a bar and started a fight with you, okay? Because they're drunk and they don't know what they're saying. They're ordinarily an okay guy, but something set them off earlier. They got drunk, they got in a bad mood, and now they're picking a fight with somebody, and it's not even something characteristic of them. I'm not saying unleash upon somebody like that, with full force. You might want to contain them, get them home so they could sleep it off. That's different. I'm talking about acknowledging the enemies of humanity as the true psychopaths that they are, knowing not even it being unlikely that they're going to change, knowing from their track record they're just evil incarnate and they're not going to change. They've been broken and they're not going to become unbroken. They're not going to heal. You're not healing certain people. That has to be identified, okay? But this is part of what I consider the deepest level of real self-defense philosophy, and it's missing in self-defensive schools. You want to know why it's missing? What I'm going to explain to you is missing in almost every self-defense school, every school of martial art in the history of humanity. It's missing because the people who run those things don't have enough knowledge of the human psyche. They haven't studied it deeply enough. They don't have enough knowledge of human psychology. They don't have enough knowledge of the occult. That's why they don't teach this, okay? Because this is actually deep occultism if you really want to break it down, okay? What the qualities you have to bring into yourself when you're dealing with a true enemy of humanity are: there is no remorse toward them. There is no mercy toward them. They're not really a human being anymore. What the qualities that make a human being are absent in them. They're not going to stop. Therefore, I'm not going to stop. Okay? I'm not going to have any remorse for anything that I do to them when it gets switched on. Again, this isn't, your whole personality doesn't become this. Again, I'm talking about a little box that you keep tightly locked up so that you don't bring that out when it's inappropriate. And you keep it hidden away. You put this all way deep in yourself and you have it. You have it. You own it. You possess it. That's what having the psychopath means. To own it, to possess it. Now, here's the qualities. You need all the same qualities. The only thing that will ever truly defeat a psychopath is having the psychopath inside yourself that you could bring out in a bigger way. And arguably, you could even use the word a more monstrous way. You have to become more monstrous than them when the time comes to do physical combat. And you have to realize there are really 4 rules of engagement when it comes to a psychopath, to doing any kind of physical combat with a psychopath. No surrender, no retreat, no quarter, no prisoners. Those are the 4 rules of attrition war. A war of attrition has those 4 rules. Okay? So inside you got to switch off emotion. When you bring out the psychopath to do that type of true self-defensive war, you switch off your normal range of emotions. That means there is absolutely no mercy to the enemy. Okay? You're not engaging in the normal qualities that you would engage in. You're deliberately walling off qualities that are reserved for people who deserve them at this point. And you're saying you will receive none of these qualities. You will only receive the negative qualities because you've proven we can't coexist. We can't live in the same world together. And one of us has to go. And that's a hard thing for most people. Most people don't have that. And that's why I'm trying to explain. They need to develop it. They need to have it. They're afraid of that. Most people are scared to death of that. And they're scared to death of it because they feel they're such a bad person that they would not be able to control it. That's why they're scared of developing it. The people who are scared of developing that, deep down inside of themselves, know that they're not good enough to control it. And they'll bring it out at an inappropriate time. So they're not comfortable enough with themselves and their own morality to realize this is something that has to be had and kept to wage against the enemy at the appropriate time. So I keep telling people all the time, and I don't know whether they understand what I'm saying, that I am not a psychopath. I have a full range of deep human emotions and passionate emotions, and really, really feel deeply, what is going on around me. From all ranges, in every range, positive and negative. But so I am not a psychopath because I have all of those emotions and I display them and experience them and express them. But I have a psychopath. I have worked with and developed that aspect of my personality such that when the time comes to do combat in whatever form, I will not, one, ever back down or surrender. I'm coming until one person is gone. I will never retreat. That means there's no backing up. You don't retreat. You don't move backward. And this is another thing people don't understand about any form of combat. No battle is ever won on the defensive. Ever. Ever. Military generals know this, but the average population doesn't know this. And all our side has been doing is backpedaling, backing up, backing up, backing up, backing up, moving backwards. We're moving backwards while the enemy is charging forward. We don't have them on the back pedal. They have us on the back pedal. That's why they're winning. You never win any engagement on in the reverse by backing up, by retreat, ever. You watch any martial art, you watch any combat sport, watch boxing, watch MMA, no winner has ever taken the winning position by backing up or fighting on the defensive. You don't fight on the guard. Okay, you could say people have won in MMA fighting in the guard position, but they have eventually had to go for a submission, from that position. So they had to press it forward at some point to gain a tactical advantage. If you keep backing up and keep fighting on the guard, the most you could hope for is a bad stalemate, which is not what we want either, because would we want a stalemate and the world be kept like this? I don't think so. The point is, most people do not understand these rules of engagement because they think that that's somehow bad. It isn't bad if you're definitely fighting the real bad guys and you're in the right and you're the real good guys. That's why I'm saying it's important to engage the trivium and be sure that you're correct. Be sure, first of all, that you're right, that you're in the right. So the answer is, are we in the right? The question is, are we in the right? The answer is, we've applied the trivium process. We understand the difference between right and wrong. We understand objective morality. We're definitively in the right. We don't believe that we're in the right. We are, and that's not a religious statement. A lot of religionists say that. That's why I understand a lot of people compare people who understand natural law to a religion, but it is not. Because this is objective, real world, non-religious thought and thinking and understanding that is about actions that we perform in the world and whether we have the right to do that or not, to do those things or not, because they either do not initiate harm or they do initiate harm, which is very real world and measurable. It's very real material in the world, in the physical domain, and measurable. And that's how we apply the trivium and quadrivium to natural law, to understand it, to know it. So first, make sure you're in the right. Make sure you're on the right side and you're really one of the good guys. Then when you are engaging, you have to understand engaging in the concept and the behavior of having the psychopath does not make you bad. You are doing what is required to deal with the bad people. No part of that would make you bad. And it's part of being a spiritual warrior. It's part of being a warrior along the true spiritual path. And that's why we don't really have many warriors on our side. We have people who are wishy-washy. Very, very wishy-washy people. That's the only way I could put it. They're deep down inside, when it came down to it, I wouldn't want them next to me holding a weapon. I wouldn't want them fighting alongside of me. I'd worry more about them, honestly, than I would about the enemy, quite frankly. We have weak, wishy-washy people in this movement. Weak, wishy-washy people. The amount of warriors in the truth and freedom movement, you could probably count them on a couple hands. And I don't know, is that ancestral? You know, is it past life related? I don't know. You know, is it some experiences, did they really mold us into that? You know, hey, I get very upset about things that people would say, "Oh, I thought you were harder than that." You know, I'm not talking about getting upset about like how bad the state of the world is and how immoral people are. I'm talking about if it came down to real combat, what would you do to a person who's trying to take you out of the world? You know, and do you realize that's that's not just a potential of happening, really. It's already happening. This is already going on. Eugenics is already being waged. Okay? What they're putting in the air, in the water, and in the food is already a biological attack. What they're putting in alleged so-called medicines is already a biological attack. What they're doing with all of the closures is already a biological attack against the physical organism of the human being. You know, it's not something that is going to start. We're already at war. It has started. It has already been being conducted. That's what people still don't understand. They think taking action against something like that would somehow be wrong. They're already taking action against you. It doesn't matter that it's covert action. It's already action that has real world physical consequence. And people don't think that we have the right to stop them. And again, I'm not suggesting a course of action. I'm explaining that the right exists. This is what I did in Duress, Dissidence, and Deadly Force, my presentation. You know, I'm not saying go out and kill people. I'm saying the right exists to end certain people's existence based upon what they have done. You have to understand that's a natural right that people possess. To remove people from the world because they're such dangerous influences upon the world. That right exists. That's called the right of self-defense under natural law. And it doesn't make a difference. A lot of people go, well, you can't go hunt people down. Based on what people have already done, actually, you can. That is a right. You know? The whole point is, what do? Keep letting them do it just because they're doing it covertly? This is part of the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that we've been too soft. We've been too soft on people. I personally think we really already should have been at war a long time ago, at physical war a long time ago. I've put more of my eggs in the basket of trying to educate people to real morality so that doesn't become a definitive eventuality that has to be engaged, because I know what real war is. I know what a real war of attrition would look like. It's another presentation that I want to do connected with this called Real War, you know, because people think war is Hollywood shit. Real war is not Hollywood, folks. You know, what you see in Hollywood movies is not what war is. Especially, you want to talk even about war between nation states that has rules of engagement. That's not real war either. That's horrific, just about as horrific as it can get. And that's not real war. That's two landowners, slave master plantations, fighting in a squabble with each other with rules of engagement not to damage the respective plantations too much. That's what that is. When real war happens, there are no rules. Watch The Art of Self-Defense. One of the biggest statements in that is you thought that there were rules, but there never were. There never were rules in a real combat situation. There's no rules. Okay? And I mean no rules, not even natural law. Does it really ultimately still apply? Of course it does. It's still there. But I'm saying if you in a combat situation try to abide by natural law principles, you're going to get killed. You're going to be killed immediately. That's why I'm trying to explain to people, learn it and put it into effect before it comes to that. I don't know how much I've implored people with the inner core of my being and heart. You don't want it to come to this. You don't understand what it's going to be. Trust me, most people don't understand. They've never even envisioned it. In the blackest depths of their mind, they probably couldn't envision how bad it will get, how bad it will be. Because you think about how good of a human being you are, and think about the absence of every one of those qualities just about everywhere, and having to deal with that. You know, 1,000 times worse than what it is today. If we don't succeed in our mission as teachers, that's what's going to happen to the world. That it will occur. It has occurred. It has happened in the past, and it will occur again. You know, so having the psychopath means You're taking those qualities that you see in the psychopath, you're putting them in a toolbox. When the time comes to do combat, they're all coming out of the toolbox and being engaged. And that means no emotions, no sympathy, no empathy, no remorse, no helping the enemy, no giving quarter to the enemy, no backing up from the enemy, no retreating from the enemy. That's hardcore shit that most people never even want to think about, let alone want to prepare their minds and their bodies for, and psychologically prepare themselves for that eventuality to occur within their lifetimes. But that is what we're going to need to engage in if we're going to truly develop the qualities that we may need to beat an enemy with zero conscience. And I'm talking about the military out there, of all the militaries of all the world. I'm talking about the police of every country. You guys are the enemies. You are the ones who have turned your emotions off. And you're not going to like it at all when we decide to turn ours off. The reason you're still here is because we haven't turned ours off yet. When we do, look out. You could take that as a warning. It's not a threat. It's a warning. Get your mind straight. Get your mind right. Learn natural law unless you want to see that eventuality happen to you and your loved ones, because that's what's going to occur. You're going to bring it on like you guys, you know what the police and military are? All the order followers, all the dumb order followers of the world are. You know what you guys are? You're all standing in front of a building with all hooks on the building, and you're pulling on the building, trying to bring it right down on top of your heads. You're trying to bring a massive building down with with hooks and cables right down on all of you. That's what you all look like to me. That's how dumb you are. And you want to keep following orders when orders come down in this bullshit pandemic situation, this nonsense, non-pandemic? You want to follow your orders when they come down to you to take more people's rights, or God forbid, try to take their weapons? You're going to bring that building down on your head, son. That's all I have to say. And then you're going to find out what having the psychopath, for those of us who do have it, is going to bring upon you.
Yeah, well said, Mark. I mean, this topic is really important because it's right around the corner. It's going to get worse if we keep, in perpetual ignorance through this situation. I keep saying that the psychological similarities of Nazi Germany and what we're going through now are extremely high.
Right. So let's explore that for a brief moment.
Cool.
Should the people of Germany have just allowed the Nazis to get stronger and stronger and stronger to the extent that they did? Or should they have taken kinetic action against them before that? Would they have been right? Would the people of Germany have been right in taking kinetic action against their government before it became the powerful Nazi party that it did? Anybody that says no, they shouldn't, I don't know how you could possibly lie to yourself like that. You're not just lying to yourself, you're wrong. There's a correct answer. And the answer is, yes, of course they should have taken kinetic action against their government before it got to the point where it destroyed almost all of Europe and would have destroyed the whole damn world. Of course they should have. The situation is no different now than it was then. No different.
Exactly. Yeah, and people are so passive, and they do not even think about or imagine or contemplate that situation, and that's why it's creeping in. It's getting the grip is tightening by the day.
Well, I want to say something about that, the passiveness of people. Okay.
Yeah.
Part of it is they may have a certain level of damage in their brain and in complexes within their brain and psyche, because I immediately am distrustful of anyone who is incapable of becoming angry. And I notice them. I notice people that cannot be angry, that never display anger, ever, for any reason. Right there, if you notice that, don't ever trust that person fully, deeply. Don't ever trust them very deeply. You could trust them with some little cursory things and tasks, but don't bring them into the core inner fold of something that you may have to depend upon each other's lives for. Never trust a person like that, ever. That's trust me, I've given people right there some of the best life advice you'll ever get.
Yeah.
Because anybody who is incapable of becoming angered does not really care about themselves, and therefore they don't really care about anybody else. You know, not deeply, cursorily, you know, on the surface maybe, but anybody who no passion ever comes out of them, you cannot trust that individual, not deeply, because they're broken in some way. They're broken in some way that they haven't dealt with, you know? And the whole point is, I see this all over, even in our movement. I see people who never express any anger, never express any rage, even for all the terrors that have been done, all the horrors that have already been done. Not getting angry that there's poison in food, water, and air. Not getting angry that children are being raped and tortured. Not getting angry that pedophiles have, not had any consequences done to them and get off scot-free. Not getting angry that our rights are being taken, not getting angry that schools are a joke and there is no real education, not getting angry that people don't care about what's right and wrong. All of these things are things we should be enraged about, not just angry. We should be enraged enough to be doing something about them every single day of our existence. It's the old adage from the movie Network. First, you've got to get mad. Nothing really drives behavior until you first get mad at the injustices around us, and part of it is people don't want to rock the boat. They don't want other people to see them as negative. No, getting angry at evil isn't negative. That's the correct emotional response. Not getting angry at evil is negative, because you're going to let it keep going unchallenged and letting it keep encroaching more and more and more into our freedom.
It's a lack of respect, self-respect.
What it is.
As well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I wanted to apply some trivium to what you're saying.
Sure.
Is if you look at the abuse that happens to these children, specifically like MK Ultra type programming, it's all based around trauma-based mind control. So I think it shows you that the predator class understands this concept that you're talking about, and they're creating alter egos that are psychopathic in these individuals, and they're doing it through a trauma, right? Which could be rape or starvation or abuse, all different approaches that they use. And then when you see those people later, the way that they resolve their issues is by integrating those alter egos, right?
Correct.
Like that's the process. So it ties into a lot of what you call shadow work too, like really looking at those deeper parts of yourselves, and then also looking at these individuals in society and kind of understanding that they have this part of them. They are also humans, and even though they don't seem like it, and we have to accept that part of us and wield it like a weapon, like as you're saying.
That's exactly right, because it's not negative. It's dark, you could say that it's filled with what we consider the negative qualities that we don't want to enact every day, but having it and integrating it is not a negative process. That's a positive process, because there is a use for it. If we can experience it, there's a use for it. There's a use for trauma, It's like we have to stop seeing all these things as negative, or they should be purged or cleansed. Society is too sanitized as far as negative experiences go. That's why people don't get tough. That's why we have wishy-washy little boys and girls everywhere instead of real men and women, because our species has become weakened because we're trying to sanitize every area of life and keep everybody safe instead of making them strong. You don't get strong from being safe and sheltered. Being safe and sheltered your whole life and never taking risk and never having any harm done to you means you grow up weak. That's what it means. And all you got to do is look around you in any major city. Have children grown up strong, or have they grown up weak in our society? It's an entire society of weaklings. What are weaklings going to do? Are weaklings going to stand up to tyranny? Good luck with that. And again, that's why this whole thing of not embracing anger when it's for the right reasons, when it's against the right things, we want to purge anger. Oh, he's angry. Yeah, you're damn right. And I'm angry about all the right things. And it's perfectly justified. And you should be too. You would be correct for being as angry, if not angrier than me. It would be the correct emotional response. Instead of not being angry at all these injustices, that's an immoral, incorrect, non-appropriate emotional response. I don't personally, I don't understand. To me, it's cut and dried because I've done that shadow work, right? It's cut and dried. It's blatant. It's as obvious as the sun rising on the eastern horizon in the morning to me.
Mm.
But for other people, that's an alien concept because part of them is broken. They're not whole, they're not complete. They don't have all the parts of themselves assembled. Parts of them have been cut off and thrown away. And they threw it away, threw away the key, and that's it. They all those parts need to be reintegrated by understanding. No, it's not negative. It teaches you a lesson. It makes you stronger. You need these because without them you're not going to be able to survive. You know, you're not going to be able to survive in a combat situation if you don't have the psychopath. You're going to be gone. You're going to be gone like that in an instant. They're going to have a little bit of a harder time with somebody like me. And not saying that I'm the toughest SOB in the world, just saying I'm not going down as easily as other people, more likely than not will. That's all I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
I didn't take that attitude in the past because I didn't have enough deep self-respect developed to say I'm worth surviving. Other people should go. I should survive and stay in the world to continue to teach natural law. And so should many other people, And that's the attitude I have now. Why should I give them an easy target? I'm going to make it as hard as possible to take me out because I deserve to survive. Other people really don't deserve to survive based upon what they've done or have not done. I think important people who have something to contribute to the world should do everything to ensure their survival in the coming tribulations because we're headed toward tribulations. I call this the time of cosmic judgment where we're at. This is the judgment, and then what follows the judgment is the tribulation. And you could say that those are religious terms, but I don't look at it like that. I look at it like these are cosmic terms. These are terms about what's really happening collectively to us as a species. And all you got to do is ask, did we embrace the truth? Hey, whatever happened to the truth about 9/11? Whatever happened to even the truth about something like the Kennedy assassination? Did we embrace those truths? No. You know what we said? Screw that. I'm not interested in truth. Do we embrace the truth about the police state we're headed in? No, most people are urging it on, saying how wonderful it is that people join the police force or the military, their own parents. No, we're urging it on. We're saying, bring it on, bring it on. Oh, truth. Here's what you could do with truth. That's what the human race is saying. What do you think's going to follow that? Good times, and the problem is most people don't want to get in people's face about it. Most people want to just stay nice and wishy-washy, not rock the boat, not get up in somebody else's face because they prefer peaceful coexistence, even though one person is one group of people is 100% completely wrong and going to lead the world into chaos rather than confrontation and beating on people like that. I'm not talking about physically, but beating on them with the concepts and ideas is what eventually wears that ego down, wears it down. If I look at my own mother as an example, okay, I beat on her psyche for year after year after year after year. Now she gets it. She gets it. She's not in a super empowered position to do much about it at her age, and health. She's not in bad health, but, once you get up to a certain age, you're not going to have the type of energy required to, start something like what we're doing. But you get my point is she understands what's going on now, at least, and is not in resistance to it. And she could see it. I don't even have to say it to her. She can see it, right? Now, that doesn't mean you're all the way because you're not in a state of action and teaching others. I get that. But guess what? Without my hammering on her consciousness year after year for 15 years, beating on someone in consciousness with facts and information nonstop. That's how long it took to just minimally transform one human being. That's how hard the great work is to do. That's how difficult it is to do, you know?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
think about how much more of it we need and how many more teachers who are dedicated and that passionate about doing this type of work. That's what we're going to need to turn it around. And quite frankly, I don't know if we have the time. I'm not so sure that we have the time left before this goes into physical war. And that's why people need to be prepared. Like, keep some of the eggs in both baskets is what I'm saying. I'm saying get ready. Try to bring upon the time of peace through learning, through consciousness, but you better prepare for war simultaneously. People better prepare for war simultaneous to that. I'm not saying throw out all the books and throw out the knowledge and don't try to continue to teach. Do that right up to the very time of war, but I'm saying war is going to overtake that time very, very, very soon. Very soon. And it's sad. It's sad because we had the opportunity to do it and people sat on their hands. That's why it's sad, very sad to me. So,
Yeah, we're definitely gonna feel those consequences for sure. I try to strike the balance. I call it the prepper and propagator.
I
So
like
I'm the prepper. I'm prepared for any situation, and then
right.
propagation of knowledge and truth and natural law. And preparation is extremely important. Um, and I think a lot of people are lacking that the core of philosophy. It's been completely removed out of education.
Sure.
The war on philosophy, because that allows you to actually dive deep and look at those big questions externally and internally.
Yes.
And people are internally confused.
Yep.
And you got to work with those emotions. That's why the shadow work is so important. So you
And
can
Will,
harness your
that's why a
emotions.
lot of people will listen to this interview without a basic underlying core framework of all the philosophy that I've talked about in the past in all my other podcasts and presentations, and say, "Oh, this is so horrible and negative," and it's like you don't want to start here. Okay, let me just say that again. You want to start at the beginning of my podcast and understand all of my previous work as a reference for this. This is something that I would say at the very end, which is why I haven't even made the formal presentation of having the psychopath yet, but I will. Okay. If there's time. But you don't want to start with material like this. This is like going to the end of a book and reading the last couple pages and you're like, what? Of course it's going to be like that. You don't have the framework for what I've said over the last 15 years, for
Yeah,
the vast amount of teachings that I've conducted over 15 years of my life. You got to go back to the early podcasts and you got to work your way through them, period. That's it, you know?
absolutely,
And
for sure.
you do that and watch the presentations and seminars, then you'll have a handle on the philosophy. Then you'll understand what I'm saying and why, I'm explaining to people to prepare physically for what's coming. If most people, I think, have an idea that something really bad is happening and is, things are not right, that it's not what we're being told, and that potential really, really negative times are ahead. It's going to make, I think 2020 is going to make, is going to look good by comparison to the times that are ahead, quite frankly. Sadly, I have to say that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that what you're talking about is the missing piece when you talk about the two principles of anarchy, right? Because it's the principle of non-aggression and then the principle of self-defense. But when you talk to people on the streets about that, they don't understand that in any way.
Yep.
They to them that's murder, and that's if you defend yourself and you cause harm on somebody, that's somehow immoral in itself. But I think this is the piece where, to me, yeah, like if you are going to live in a society under true anarchy, everyone needs to wield this aspect of themselves and not be fearful of it. But I agree with you that we're not even close to that.
Right.
So,
And as I explained in the natural law seminar, if you're ever in doubt about whether something is a right, imagine a small island with two people on it. That's all you have to do. A small island, two people only on it. Because rights and morality don't change based on population. So what's right between two people is right between 2 billion people or 2 trillion people. Okay? What's wrong between two people is wrong between 2 trillion people. Okay? If there's a population of 2 trillion. Okay, rights don't change with respect to time, location, or population. Okay, so if in doubt, you envision that island, two people on it. Okay, one person starts attacking the other person or trying to take their rights or trying to take their stuff. What would this other person have the right to do? Defend themselves with physical force. Okay, up to and including deadly force if required, if the person won't back down. Well, what if this person over here is saying, I'm going to hold you under duress. You're going to do all the fishing. You're going to do all the, building. And I have a weapon and I'm holding it on you and I'm holding you under duress. And if you don't follow my orders, I'm going to kill you. Well, what would this person have the right to do at any time to free themselves from that situation of duress? That's where we're at as a population, where a small percentage of the population calling themselves government is holding the rest of the population in duress. And it's not just duress, it's called slavery. Even duress is a euphemism. It's slavery. Here's all you have to ask, folks. Do slaves have a right to kill the slave masters at any time? That's it.
Yeah.
That's how you know whether it's right or not. The state of slavery is immoral and should be ended at any time that the slaves have the opportunity to end it. That's the truth. That's the truth. It will never not be the truth. That's the truth. Every slave had a right to kill every slave owner. That's the truth. At any time that slavery was practiced in human history. And it always will be the truth. That will always be the truth. And that's all you need to understand what the current human situation is. But guess what? That makes most people frightened so much that urine will run down their leg. Because they're cowards. They're cowards. See? The truth is not something that you accept and be like, that's so great, that's so wonderful. The truth is something that you need to accept, even though it's so horrible that you accept it anyway because you don't have fear over what the reality of the situation is. That's why religion is invented, to teach us nonsense, wishy-washy garbage that isn't true but makes us feel good. That's what the New Age movement is. The New Age movement is all a bunch of garbage that isn't true. Some of it is, a core amount of it is true, because they got to put that in there for you to take it, for you to accept it, or your soul would just spit it out and say this is a total insult, But they wrap it in all this garbage that isn't true just because it makes us feel good, And they don't want to tell us the truth that makes us feel bad because, oh, that's negative. No, that's reality. And that's what we need to learn and grow as human beings and be prepared for any eventuality we may encounter. That's the truth.
Excellent. Yeah, well said, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mark.
Great questions, too. I mean, and the great topic to pick, because this is something, like I said, I haven't really delved into too much, but we fleshed it out pretty well here. And eventually I'm going to formalize that into a formal presentation.
Yeah,
Excellent.
That's awesome. It's hard to find something to ask you about that you haven't talked about like 100 times.
Well, you guys did. That was new, and hopefully people will, really hear and listen and think about what I said here, because that's some heavy, weighty material to chew on.
But extremely relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you have coming in the near future, Mark?
Well, very, very soon, the One Great Work Network is going to be launched. We are finishing the website as we speak. It's looking great. And we're going to start onboarding content creators this month. So I'm thinking optimistically a late January launch, maybe an early February launch. We'll see. But I think, the network is going to be fantastic because we're onboarding about 45 content creators, and it's going to be an awesome repository of material. It's going to be a 24-hour truth channel that people could go to and hear people talking about natural law and objective morality and the unfortunate condition of human slavery, and talk about those issues 24 hours a day. And then we're going to have a website full of content that people could go to individual content creators' content and watch it individually at their own time that they want, and even support them through donations. So, it's going to be an all voluntary network. No subscriptions.
I
Just to give
love it.
a little, backdoor info here. No paywall, no subscriptions, totally free, 24-hour streaming player, and 45 content creators to start, and their content that they will publish on the site. They'll have actual, author publishing rights to the site, so they could post anything. The content creators, once we bring them in, they can post anything that they want to the site, any of their content. So it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. This is the biggest endeavor as far as a project goes that I think I've ever undertaken. So that's coming up early 2021. And we are also finishing the Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law documentary. We're in the final editing stages now. I know I've been saying that for a bit, but we want to get this polished. We have original 3D animation that we're adding into it, and an original soundtrack, basically, with with actually three very talented musical artists. So it's coming along great, and the visuals are pretty stunning. And I think people are really going to appreciate it as a resource to teach people natural law using. So that's also coming in early 2021 for me and my work. And then maybe later in the year, I'll get back to the What on Earth is Happening live shows. I'm going to take a little bit longer of a hiatus from that for the time being to get these other projects fully launched. So that's what I'm up to.
What about the class that you just ran? How did that go? And are you planning on doing it again?
How to Become the True Media seminar was, I think, one of the most worthwhile things that I've ever put together. I think the students really appreciated it and garnered a lot of knowledge about how to effectively use a computer through it and organize a computer, and put out material, and, just start the process of getting, your work out to the public. So I'm definitely going to do it again. I'm thinking about maybe doing it again starting this summer. But let me see how these other projects go. I might do that maybe in the winter of, 2022, depending on how this year goes with my other projects. But, so maybe we'll rotate, do it every, instead of every 12 months, every 18. I'm not sure. But if the other projects launch smoothly, and, I'm not bombarded with, more work on my plate, then I may do another How to Become the True Media seminar in the summer of 2021. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, being a recent graduate of the class, man, it's and I consider myself probably above average when it comes to graphic and video and computer skills, and it filled in so many gaps, and I learned actually tremendous amount. So it was phenomenal.
And you definitely are above average when it comes to those things. The average person would not even have those skills under their belt. So you're coming to the table already with a skill set. I could definitely see that. So I really thank you for those kind comments on the course. I definitely consider you one of the really good students in that course, and you've obviously already been doing the great work. And I thank both of you guys for doing the Natural Freedom League. I hope you guys have a lot of luck and success with it, and continue going forward with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate everything you do. Will, another good episode.
Another good episode, man. Beautiful.
All right, you guys have a good day, and always remember, put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth. Peace.